Ho ho and Merry Christmas! This is the Plug in Play podcast, your checkpoint for video game news, reviews, and hot takes nobody asked for. I'm your host, Henry, and on this very special Christmas edition, which really only the intro and me saying Merry Christmas is the Christmas edition of this episode. But Christmas edition of the Plug and Play podcast, we have the Game Awards. We'll be going through every announcement at the Game Awards, along with all the winners and losers, some AI controversy that's popped up, and of course, impressions. I'll be honest, it's been light this episode, but Despelote, a short little indie game that's rather surprising. I'll get into why in the impressions segment. But first, before we get into any of that, why don't you give me a Merry Christmas and give us a like, a comment, a subscribe, a review, whatever you want, however you like to do it. We're everywhere. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you consume your podcasts. Now we're on YouTube. So you can like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram at PlugInPlayPod1. And that would easily be the best Christmas gift I could find under the Christmas tree this year. As well as you can be a part of the show by emailing us at the pluginplaypodcast1@gmail.com email address. And, why don't you check the comments, check the description while you're down there. I put timestamps there. It's labor of love. I do it for you. You can tell I'm kind of all over the place. It's been a long past couple of weeks. Long past couple of weeks. Sorry if I'm a little low energy. I'm trying to keep it up, I promise. But if you've ever owned a home, which I'm very new to, you will know that sometimes your chimney rots and you have to replace the whole thing. And sometimes you get a quote and it's $10,000 and you can't afford that. And so you decide to do it yourself and it takes 2 weeks. This may seem like a really weird hypothetical, but I promise you it's just been my life for the past 2 weeks. I've had no time to play video games at all. Literally sun up to sundown been working on a dang chimney. So that Santa can come down the chimney with glee. This is still a Christmas episode. I'm trying. Cut me some slack. But anyway, so I have had very little time. I had very little energy. We are getting this episode up. I'm recording on the 22nd, which is because I've had no time. It has been a very hectic holiday season for many reasons, and that's just the most recent one. So we got a lot to cover, and in all honesty, I think we should start with our comment corner. That's right, my new favorite segment where we go through and we choose some comments left by you, the viewer, in any of our socials, and we read them out here on the podcast and respond to them because they're always intelligent and they're always saying something else other than just saying I'm AI. So that's wonderful. So for this particular comment corner, we're focusing on the Game Awards. We had our prediction episode a couple of episodes ago, and the short went up a while back. We had some people on our lovely YouTube comments, which I continue to learn. There's a reason people always make fun of the people who comment on YouTube, but for these, they are viewers of my podcast, and they left comments, which I'm appreciative of, that weren't just calling me AI. So they are engaging in a discourse, which is what I'm wanting. So this is perfect. So, from Waddle D. Doobie. Oh, I suppose I should add context first. This is a short based around Donkey Kong Bonanza, which was nominated for Game of the Year and Best Family Game and nothing else. Best Family Game is kind of a, giveaway category to Nintendo, really. Like, it's just like all of Nintendo's games are just rated E for everyone, so like they kind of all just go to Nintendo. It's really just kind of a gimme category for them. But I was very surprised when I saw that Donkey Kong was nominated for Game of the Year, but he wasn't nominated for Anything else? Normally, and you'll kind of go through this, and we'll see when we go through the game of the year winners, is you're typically nominated for a separate category, because game of the year is really normally just the winners of all the other big categories together. So like you have best action adventure game, best action game, best sports game, best RPG, like best indie game, all these different categories, obviously. And then normally just those categories are just kind of genres that in and of themselves are huge parts of the industry, and therefore would likely just elevate it to a game of the year nominee because it's the best of a major genre within the entire video game industry, right? So like in this instance, every one of these nominees outside of Donkey Kong was nominated for another game or for another category, except for like a Gimme Award, that was obviously always going to go to Nintendo anyway. So like it seemed odd considering what I seem to the crux of this entire thing here. Enough context is everybody seemed to really like Donkey Kong when it first came out, and I don't think people seem to be very intrigued with it anymore. Like the hype for that game skyrocketed into the abyss and then cratered into the ground shortly after its release. And, a lot of that I'm sure had to do with it was a Switch 2 launch title, and it was really the big IP or the big game outside of Mario Kart, I suppose, that was supposed to get you to buy a Switch 2, and it was also a kind of a more so reboot, seem more sophisticated than I am, reboot of like Donkey Kong as a franchise. We really haven't seen him outside of his 2D antics for a very long time, since the N64 exactly, since Rare made a game for them before they were bought by Microsoft, which obviously dates that a long time. So why was Donkey Kong something that fell off? I mean, it has a 91 on Metacritic on OpenCritic right now. That's an amazing score, and I feel like most of the games, in fact, that were nominated for Game of the Year didn't even hit that. Donkey Kong is like the second or third best game reviewed this year, and it's nominated for Game of the Year, but it's not nominated for anything else. It just seems weird. The pieces of this puzzle were not connecting to me, right? So we had two YouTube commenters who chimed in on this. We had Waddle D Doobie, who says, honestly, there's nothing else for it to get nominated for outside of Family and Game of the Year. If you look at all the other categories, it just doesn't fit. And I respond to that, and I say, obviously, I think the category it should have been nominated for, that would have made me probably drop all of these conversation topics, these allegations, is action adventure. A lot of platformers typically get nominated for action adventure game because most platformers are adventure games in general and also have action in them. They have combat. So that's typically where this would fall, and it would fall into action adventure. In fact, I even double checked. I was like, am I crazy for saying this? I literally went onto the Wikipedia page for Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Nintendo does state that Donkey Kong Bonanza is an action adventure game. And so I'm like, okay, how did Donkey Kong Bonanza did not make it onto action adventure best of the year? Like that just seems crazy to me. Like it made it on a Game of the Year, but it didn't make it onto the genre that it is the best at. That just doesn't make sense. Like I don't understand the correlation there. Also, I would think best music would be an obvious inclusion for Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Bonanza has a massive focus on its music. It has musical elements that happen every time you transform. There are musical set pieces. The soundtrack's also fairly catchy in my personal opinion. I think that the exclusion from best soundtrack is a little odd, to be frank. And then I think best direction. You want me to be legit? I think best direction is a legitimate category you could consider Donkey Kong Bonanza for. Not to say that the people who are in any of these categories didn't deserve to be there. I'm just saying best direction makes sense to me because you're really taking a lot of interesting ideas and like specifically the destruction element of Donkey Kong and really honing in on that and turning it into something that I haven't seen a lot of destruction games do. And I think that's really impressive, and I think it takes a lot of good directing in order to do that. So I would say all three of those categories made sense. I think maybe direction's a little bit of a stretch. It's really opinionated how you can kind of consider direction, what's direction in games, how much of it is X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. But I think it my personal opinion, if you did that, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. But I think the soundtrack and action adventure noms being amiss are completely like crazy to me. Which kind of brings us into Jim Smith 5276. He says, quote, which he's quoting me, which you'll find interesting. It's not a real quote, but he made it up. Quote, not nominated for anything else. Well, except for this thing, but that ruins my narrative, which I didn't say that, okay? And then he says, bro, game was fun, sure, but it doesn't have the content to be GOTY. All you do is smash the ground and run around. There have to be better games this year, by far. Fair argument, Jim Smith 5276. Fair argument. If I had said that, but I didn't, he's lying. Okay? So, I think that's a weird comment to make. Smashing the ground and run around, sure, that is the focal point of the game, but I think this game had a lot of polish. It had a lot of charm. Obviously, it's a Nintendo developed game. I don't know how. I mean, there are definitely bad Nintendo games out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure we had one this year that was GameStop even gave the worst game of the year award to. But if that holds any water. But like they do mess up every once in a while. But like when Nintendo really doubles down on platforming and polish and design, like they are easily one of the best developers in the world, bar none. I guess I just mainly take exception to him saying that Donkey Kong was nominated for 2 awards and therefore the argument of me saying it should have been nominated for more is not necessarily accurate. I understand his confusion around that, but all in all, I obviously meant, it needed to probably be a headliner or even a winner of a major genre award, I guess is where it comes at. But I do appreciate all your comments. So, thank you very much. But we're going to move on from the comment corner because we have honestly spent way too long on the comment corner. And I probably rambled a little too long on the comment corner, to be frank. But we have the best Christmas present of the year. The Game Awards were this week. And very unfortunate, I had an episode go up like right beforehand. So then, I got to wait 2 weeks before I can go through everything. But, it is what it is. I actually think the Game Awards, will just go ahead and say it was pretty freaking good this year. Okay? I think it was, personally, pretty good. All right? A lot of people seem to be down on it. I think it was a pretty good show. We're going to go through it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of the awards. I know. Henry, why are you not saving this for last, just like the Game Awards? Because no one gives a frick about the awards. That's the secret about the Game Awards, is no one cares about the awards. They only care about the announcements. But here's the thing, is I actually do care about the awards, and it's a fun thing to get involved with. Here's the thing, is that the awards were boring this year. Why? Because Claire Obscure won everything. It was boring as frick. And like I kind of knew that was going to happen going in. I mean, when you look at everything Claire Obscure is up against and the narrative behind it, it was always going to win everything. Is it boring as frick that it won everything? Sure. Is it deserved? Probably so. I see people there. I mean, I guess I should save this for like the end of the episode, so I will. But anyways, it deserves to win, so it should win. Like that's essentially the crux of the argument. But The actual awards. Let's start off with the ones that I don't care about. So best esports team. Guess who won that? Did you care? It's Team Vitality for Counter-Strike 2. Don't know who they are. I don't remember who I chose for that category. But I also don't trust my memory. I did a fun experiment last year. I predicted who would win the awards, and then I went back through and I listened to the episode and I saw who won, and I remember watching the Game Awards like, yep, I chose that, predicted it. Yep. I only missed like two. And I went back through and I listened to my predictions, and it was like, oh no, I effed that up. Like I missed like half of those. So I don't trust myself anymore to remember what I said previously. So I'm not going to even try to bother to go back and figure out who I said for each one of these categories because they were just random, especially specifically for the esports categories, most certainly. Next, best esports athlete was Chovy. I know I definitely didn't choose Chovy. He is a League of Legends player. Specifically chose Zaiwu. I remember that because it's the funniest name. So next was esports game Counter-Strike 2, which I think I actually may have chosen that just because it's the oldest one. Kind of crazy that Valve is still on top of the game there. Content creator of the year is Moist Critical. Everybody loves good drama takes, I suppose. Very safe drama takes. Next was Player's Voice. This was the Player Chosen Voted On award. And it is one of the two awards, technically, if you want to include it as an award that's legit, that Claire Obscure did not win. So I guess I technically never said the nominees of this one because they were decided like the day before the Game Awards or something like that. But Player's Voice essentially was a lot of different games, and they got narrowed down over time to these five, which were Claire Obscure, Dispatch, Genshin Impact, Hollow Knight Silksong, and Wuthering Waves, which you may not recognize Wuthering Waves. It was the winner last year. I believe it was the winner last year. It certainly made the list last year. This fan base must be the most dedicated fan base of all time because it won out against Claire Obscure, which was like kind of the definitive game of the year, absolutely. Silksong, Genshin Impact, which Wuthering Waves directly competes with as like a gotcha game, and like that's to me insane that the fan base is that big because I don't know anything about Wuthering Waves. Okay, I can tell you about Genshin Impact. I can talk to you about Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail. Those are admittedly all made by Hoyoverse. Hoyoverse. Excuse me, my southern accent is slipping. But Wuthering Waves, I don't know a lick about. I really couldn't tell you anything about Wuthering Waves, and it makes me wonder what the heck is going on here. I don't know if it's a Genshin like. I don't know if it's an action adventure RPG. I genuinely have no clue. But it's free. It's a free to play game. You can play it right now. But it really sneaks up on it. I had never heard of it. That was the first time I heard about it last year. Was when it was nominated for Player's Voice at the Game Awards. So where are you out there, Wuthering Waves fans? Because you don't have representation in the hardcore gaming community. For some reason, you're a miss, and I'm looking for you. So maybe one day I'll meet somebody who's played Wuthering Waves, but a lot of people seem to vote for it. Next was the Marketing Award, or Most Anticipated Game. This was, of course, Grand Theft Auto, which we don't even need to get into because that was obvious. Next was Best Adaptation, which was, of course, won by The Last of Us Season 2. It's an HBO show. That was just always going to be the case. And also, let's be real. The competition was the Minecraft movie Devil May Cry from Netflix, which like I heard was good, but I don't think anybody actually watched. Splinter Cell Death Watch, which no one freaking watched, and Until Dawn, which people actively didn't like. So like what the frick? Why is it even on there? Especially when Twisted Metal Season 2 was also something that came out this year and people are at least okay with that show. Like I would even say that show is fine, if not maybe even good at times, but like Until Dawn everybody critically hated. So like I don't know why that's even on the list. But Last of Us Season 2 of course wins despite its divisive response. Most multiplayer game Arc Raiders. Kind of a surprise Battlefield had a legit possibility of winning it, selling very, very well. It's actually the number 2 best-selling game this year. But Arc Raiders clearly has the zeitgeist at the moment. It's definitely got a recency bias going for it as well. It's a little bit more topical right now, which can certainly help. Esports, or best sports and racing game, was Mario Kart World, as it should be, because I don't know. I just like Mario Kart. Anyway, best sim strategy game was a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics. I don't know. That just seems kind of like a cop out. Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics is one of the best games ever made, or best strategy games ever made, but I mean, does it just gets basically the win because I don't know, Civilization 7 fell on its face pretty much. Like that's kind of the general feeling I got was like, well, like if Civilization 7 hadn't sucked for one reason or another, yeah, it would have been that. But like, I don't know. That just seems weird to give it to a remake. But I know that there's a lot of new content and a lot of upgrades and stuff. Great. It's still at its core the same game. Come on. Best family game we've already been over earlier in the episode was won by Donkey Kong Bonanza. This is a category that is just basically a gimme award for Nintendo. If they put out a game that year, they will win Best Family Game. Best Fighting Game went to Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. I don't know anything about fighting games. Next. Best RPG win, of course, and this is where the reign of terror of the night begins. Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which beats out, of course, Kingdom Come Deliverance, which was another Game of the Year nominee. And really, that was main competition. People didn't like Monster Hunter that much, or at least there's a very vitriolic backlash to it, at least from PC players. Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed are both okay, and yeah, if it beats out Kingdom Come, it's going to win it all, baby. That's just how it is. Next, Best Action Adventure Game. Hollow Knight, Silksong takes home the crown here. Not too surprising. I think the only other competition in this category was really going to be Death Stranding 2. Didn't win. So it is the obvious choice here amongst the categories. Best Action Game was Hades 2. Again, kind of another gimme. Battlefield 6 could have won. It was a possibility, but Doom: The Dark Ages was not super well received. Neither was Ninja Gaiden 4. And Shinobi: Art of Vengeance, I just don't think as many people would have played. That game actually did review very well and was very well received. But it was not necessarily a game I expected many people to play. And at the end of the day, guess what this is? It's a popularity contest. So, of course, it's going to go to Hades, which is very popular. Next was Best VR/AR Game. I found this funny. This category in general is very funny because I've talked about it before, but VR just tends to struggle. It doesn't have a lot of games come out for it that people consider to be very respectable. It's a lot of kind of shovelware games or friend slop games. Not a lot of big budget games coming out of VR in general, which is why The Midnight Walk won Best VR/AR Game. The Midnight Walk is not a VR game. It is, but like it is also a game that you can play without VR, unlike every other game on this list, which is VR exclusive. And that's why The Midnight Walk likely won, is because more people were able to play it because it wasn't VR exclusive. So they could play it without a VR headset. Next was a interesting one. Best Mobile Game, Uma Musume Pretty Derby won. This is a meme game that blew up. I mean, really, it's a meme game that blew up. I haven't played it. I intend to. It's some weeb slop that I'm sure I would get a kick out of. But, like, come on. Wuthering Waves is also in this category, which clearly people like. It's just not the people voting on the category. So it's just, I think, the game that got the most press. It got the most press. It got the most eyeballs this year. So that's why, you're seeing it instead of probably a game that may deserve it actually a little bit more. Next was the best debut indie game, which is Clair Obscur, of course. which, again, we can make the argument it wasn't. We can make the argument it was. It's very interesting here, though. Megabonk was removed from the choices, and nothing was added back. So it was one of the few categories that only had 4 nominees because one of them pulled out. Next, Best Independent Game, which you may assume Claire Obscure got that one as well. If you're going to get Best Debut Indie Game, it just kind of, or if you get Best Independent Game, I guess it makes sense you get Best Debut. Next is Best Community Support. I would love to know how they dictate this award, what the criteria is. I don't engage with many communities, so it's hard for me to say, but Baldur's Gate 3 won. I guess they deserve it. Good job for the community managers over there at Larian. Next, best ongoing game, No Man's Sky. That's right, that game that everybody hated and sent death threats to the developers over and all that other good stuff. People like it now. Never understood the turnaround there. I even played a little bit of No Man's Sky a few years back, and I was just like, yeah, this game is pretty okay, I guess. But yeah, they continue to put out patches for No Man's Sky, and people who like it seem to continue to like it. So good for them. Not my choice, certainly, but hey, you can lie to people and sucker them into buying a product, and then just use that money to actually make it good, and then it's okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's the way I think people should do it, but apparently it's acceptable and rewarded. Next is Games for Impact. Again, would love to know what this is exactly talking about. I'm assuming it's just literally anything that has to do with a somewhat politically left-leaning agenda or something along those lines. Like, I genuinely don't know what the criteria for Games for Impact is. South of Midnight won because it had a black protagonist. That's literally all I can assume it's for. I don't know, but I assume that's it. It's a minority. Is there a minority in your game? Well, then you're nominated. Like, I guess they always kind of stretch for it too. Like, I remember last year there was some indie game that got nominated for that, and I had never heard of it. I even went to its Steam page and like looked at the reviews, and it was like nobody had played it. Nobody had played it. It wasn't reviewed like outstandingly or overwhelmingly positive or anything. So I don't know. I think they really reach for that one. Next is innovation in accessibility. Again, another category I would love to know. How did we decide upon this? Doom: The Dark Ages apparently is very accessible. Has a lot of options that make it very accessible. Again, would love to know. Because I don't go into the accessibility options when I look at these games. Or play any game, really. So, like, I don't know what they have in there that makes it so accessible, but good for them. Next, best performance. This one surprised me a little bit. It's Jennifer English for her role in Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. She was, of course, nominated alongside Ben Starr and Charlie Cox, Charlie Cox is like a legitimate Hollywood actor, and Ben Starr is kind of the video game voice actor now. He's really doing a lot of press to try and put himself out there as like, I am a gamer and I like being a gamer, like that kind of deal. But Jennifer stole it, apparently. I definitely would have voted for Ben Starr. Really loved his performance overall and his character in Claire Obscure. Jennifer is definitely your number 2 there, but like honestly, I still think Charlie did a better job than both of them. But then Jennifer English, but it is what it is. Jennifer takes it home. Also Shadowheart and Baldur's Gate 3. So she's getting a lot of big roles. She was also like the narrator for a Microsoft Direct recently. So she's getting a lot of work out there. So good for her. Best audio design, Battlefield 6. Again, I mean, maybe people wearing headphones more than me. I don't know, but good for them. Best score in music, of course, is Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. Best art direction, Claire Obscure. Best narrative, Claire Obscure. Best game direction, Claire Obscure. Best game of the year, Claire Obscure. So there you go. That I just decided to tackle those all at once. Yeah. So the very end of the show kind of was the Claire Obscure show, as you can tell. It kind of makes it a little bit more boring when you think about it at the end of the day. But I've seen a lot of people come out of the woodwork weirdly and try to tear this game down. That it didn't deserve to win these awards, that it's not good, overhyped. Bro, I have not played all the games on the Game of the Year list. I played about half of them, give or take. And let me say this: Claire Obscure is easily the Game of the Year. Okay, it's the Game of the Year. Out of the games that I've played from this list, it's easily going to be the Game of the Year. It was always going to be the Game of the Year. It always did these things better than every other game on the list. It always had that zeitgeist push that was going to make it a more appealing choice for people, that underdog story that was so tantalizing for a lot of people. Um, I have been shouting from the rooftops. I'm not going to say shouting from the rooftops. I don't think I have been. But I have been very vocal or open. I'm going to say open is a much better word. Vocal makes it sound like I'm always saying it. I'm not. I have been very open about the fact that I think Clair Obscur is overglazed and has flaws. When this game first came out, people were talking like it was perfect. Like it was the first game ever made that has achieved perfection within the video games industry. And that not only were they saying this is game of the year, they were saying this is game of the generation. This is a game that, like will be people's Final Fantasy VII, that when they grow up, they're going to base their frickin' personality around it. And like they're going to name their avatar like on Twitter frickin' Gustav or whatever the frick. Because like that's a character that they resonated with so strongly and so genuinely as a child or as a youth, that like that's going to be this is their game, their defining nostalgic game for a generation. And I'm like, this is the most insane argument I've ever heard. I personally, okay, look, I love Claire Obscur. I love it. It's a great game. I think the best game I played this year. Sorry to ruin my Game of the Year episode. Please listen to it still. But it's easily the best game I played this year. And I think I've heard nothing but people this entire year be like, this is the best game ever made. Like I can't I love this game so much. It's so great. It's easily going to be game of the year. And then all of a sudden it wins game of the year. It sweeps game of the year. And it's like, "Oh, I don't actually. It really just didn't deserve that. It's really just crazy that it won Game of the Year. It really just isn't that good of a game." And I'm like, what the frick happened? Like, weren't we all rooting for this game? Wasn't it always going to be this major event that was predictable, that like it was going to win Game of the Year? And now all of a sudden I'm seeing people be like, no, dude, I freaking hate Clair Obscur. It didn't deserve it. There's so many other games that deserve it more. And I'm like, I don't know where this came from. This just is such a weird whiplash to me. I don't understand it. And I think it sucks that the Game of the Year's was not interesting, because I went in knowing Clair Obscur was going to win all the awards, all the interesting ones at least, and it did. And it made it really boring, sure. And I wish that more games got recognized, absolutely. But here's the thing: do I think that Clair Obscur probably had the best direction? Probably was the game of the year. Probably had the best narrative. Probably had the best art direction. Probably had the best performance. Probably had blah 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 blah. Honestly, yeah. Honestly, like I'm still going through Death Stranding 2 to really put a pin on that. If I really think the direction maybe should have gone to that, it was never going to, because more people played Clair Obscur and more people love the narrative behind it. But like most of these categories, I genuinely agree with. Maybe you could make maybe you could make an argument for art direction. I genuinely think the narrative is the best narrative of the year that I've played up to this point. It's easily the best. It's one of the best narratives I've seen in the past few years. It's my favorite game of the year. I think the art direction is still pretty freaking good. There's a reason it was nominated. I think the performances in the game are really freaking good. There's a reason they were all nominated. There's a reason half the freaking cast of the game was nominated. You know, I think that if these categories genuinely outpaced everybody in their competition, they deserve them. Even if they won every single award in the entire show. If they genuinely are better, if they genuinely have a space that, like, okay, well, yeah, it's going up against all these juggernauts, which I am so surprised because this is a packed year. It is so packed. Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silk Song, Ghost of Yote. Like, we got massive games that came out this year. From big IP, from games that are all highly anticipated, all critically successes. To see all of them lose in all of their respective categories that people consider them to be the best at, it's a little weird. It's a little disappointing. And if I was a dude who worked on Death Stranding 2 and I knew I made a freaking work of art or some bullcrap and Claire Obscure won, I'd be a little disappointed. Or I'd be disappointed, no doubt. But like, if it deserves it, it deserves it. If it deserves it, it deserves it. And if it wins every category, so be it. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I think the backlash is just odd. I feel like I've rambled a little bit too long on that, and we still have so much to get through. We're gonna move on, but like I don't know how you guys kind of not jeopardize whatever, how you justify it. Thank you. Sorry, like I said, been a long couple weeks, so give me some breathing room for finding the right words. Next up, we got the Free Shepherd. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I just immediately started reading my notes. Next up, we've got all of the announcements for the Game Awards. There were a lot, and there were a lot that I think make the next couple of years look pretty interesting. But let's go through them, shall we? Because it's going to take us a very long time, and I actually think a lot of them are kind of worth talking about in one way or another. So we started off with the pre-show, which started off with The Free Shepherd. Have you ever wanted to be a dog? Not just any dog, a herding dog, where you can herd or shepherd random things in a giant environment where you can freaking do that in The Free Shepherd. Your fantasy is about to be fulfilled. This is very similar to a game that recently came out called Herdling, which I didn't know people were anywhere near interested in. I remember a game as a kid called Hurdy Gurdy, which was very similar. It was a herding game, just a game completely based around herding creatures into pins, and that was on the PS2. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't know there was that much of a demand for herding games, but this was the opener for the pre-show. So next was Decrepit. So Decrepit is like kind of a dungeon crawling RPG roguelite, it looks like. First person. Oh man, there's an indie game that was very well received that I can't remember the name of. There were two of them too. But essentially it's a dungeon crawler. And really what makes this interesting is the people behind it, as a lot of these games kind of fall into the bucket of, which is ex-Ghost Ship Games and Mojang developers. You of course know Mojang as the people who made Minecraft. I don't think that makes you a particularly great developer or super creative if you helped make Minecraft, but it is what it is. It is a very big studio that's worked on one of the biggest, if not the biggest video game of all time. So kudos to you. I hope your game is good, but I am not interested in it. Not my kind of game. Next was Audio Mech, from the creator of Audio Surf. So this is a game where you put in like your own music. That's like kind of the point of it, is you import your own files, and then the game kind of reacts to like the bass and the treble and the vocals and all that using a distinct algorithm that the guy made up or whatever. In audio surf, you're like avoiding obstacles based on the beat and all those things that I mentioned prior. In audio mech, you're fighting with the beat, or the bass or whatever. Um, so like the main thing that kind of stood out to me was you have like a sword in certain segments, and sometimes the sword will be long or wide or short and narrow depending on how the song is. So like you're kind of fighting with the beat. I've always found these games that do this kind of thing. I've played similar games to it in the past on PC, and I've always found them to be kind of hit and miss. Mainly miss. I think that it's just really hard to make a game based around that. It really almost feels kind of random a lot of times from what I've played. And so like I'm really hoping that this would be a good way of doing it. I would think audio surf would probably be the way I would expect those games to be the most fun. But like this could just be a good game, and the gimmick of the music making your weapons more or less powerful is something interesting. But it just doesn't seem like it's impossible to balance the game around that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to see more. But like right now, I just can't see. I love the idea. I can't imagine the execution being worthwhile. To make it a worthwhile experience. But that's your game. Next was Solasta 2. Have you played Baldur's Gate 3? Well, then maybe you've played something similar to Solasta 2, which the main gimmick of this entire trailer was, yeah, we got a lot of the voice cast from Baldur's Gate 3. And it's like, okay. So is like your game good? Like, I don't know. And it's like, well, you got turn-based combat kind of like Baldur's Gate 3. And it's like, okay, cool. Why shouldn't I just wait for Baldur's Gate 3 or Divinity or something like that? Why do I need your game? It's like, well, just in case you really wanted some more Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, all right, that's cool. Not my cup of tea. Love Baldur's Gate 3. Don't get me wrong, but I don't need more of it necessarily. Release date March 12th, 2026. Moving on. Pragmata, finally, after the biggest tease for a release date I've possibly ever seen in a game ever, Pragmata gives a release date of April 24th, 2026, and says the demo's out now on PC if you want to check it out, and we're coming to consoles soon after. I'm waiting for the demo to come to PS5 to check it out, but I've only heard good things about Pragmata. I really think Capcom cannot miss. I believe in Capcom until proven otherwise at this point, really. They're just doing a really, really good job. Like a really, really good job of producing banger after banger after banger. And I think Pragmata is really interesting because it's a new IP coming from them. And it's a weird, like, puzzle action game. But I don't think the puzzles look intimidating enough to freak me out and push me away because I'm too stupid for most puzzle games. So, like, I'm interested to play the demo and really give some thoughts on it. But Pragmata, finally, after a many long time, is finally going to come out early next year. Next is likely. I'm not going to spoil this for you. It's kind of my game of show. That's because it really appeals to, like, me. This is like, and funny enough, this is still pre-show. Most people I've heard talk about this, the Game Awards in general, have all talked about Bradley the Badger. That's the next game. I hadn't said it yet. But Bradley the Badger is the next game. And it is from the lead designer of Red Dead Redemption and the creative director of Mario plus Rabbids, which is already a really good resume for this game. Like, obviously. But it is a platformer, 3D platformer, which I'm already in on. Like, you didn't have to say much else. I'm the platforming king, as I've said many times. And it seems to kind of do some fourth wall breaking stuff, have some kind of out of the box thinking and creative ideas. You're kind of toying around with, like, the game itself, like the programming behind the game as you go, kind of ripping apart levels in a way that's clearly, like, supposed to be fourth wall breaking. I think this looks delightful. I think it looks super fun. Immediately added it to my wish list on Steam because that's apparently the only place you can at the moment. This is easily probably my most anticipated game of the show. Really looking forward to it. Next, this is a bit of a weird announcement, but Stupid Never Dies. Stupid. The reason I say that is because it is an action game, and I saw the gameplay of it, and I was like, oh, this looks really Devil May Cry, and it's like, well, good news. It's from the studio GPT Rack or GP Track 50, and they're from veterans of Devil May Cry, so it makes sense. So Stupid Never Dies seems to be the tale of like a zombie teen, and the trailer was straight up a music video, and it was like a punk rock music video, maybe like emo music. I'm not very good at describing genres for young people, but it was basically a music video with no gameplay, and I was like, okay, I don't know if your game is good. Like that's wonderful. I get the vibe you're going for, but I didn't need that. And I know that cost them a lot of money to do as well. So showing off the gameplay, it looks like a hardcore Devil May Cry action game. Like if you like Devil May Cry, you should 100% keep your eye on Stupid Never Dies. It looks right up your alley. The vibe, I'm getting like Lollipop Chainsaw esque from it. I don't know. I'll have to be sold on it. That trailer was just kind of weird in how they tried to display the game with the music video for like 3 minutes. I don't think that was the best way of going about it. I think that could have been something they just dropped on socials and gotten a much more positive response to it. Like optionally invest yourself in that marketing that way. But like, I think as an action game goes, it honestly looks really solid. And, hey, I'm not going to play it unless it's like free at some point. Action games are one of those things that, I don't know, it's almost like fighting games. It's like a step above fighting games for me where I'm like, I love a good action game if I can get good at it within like 30 minutes. And there's very few action games that is like possible because they encourage like deep learning of the mechanics and the move set in order for you to actually succeed and like do well in those games. So not to say that you can't actually like win the game, but like you'll get like an F rating every level and you just feel like you suck and you have to go back and like work your way up to get better ranks. And I never do that because I got way too many freaking games to play to master every single game that I play. So anyway, it looks good. It looks good. I think if you're into action games, you should definitely keep an eye on it. Now we start the actual freaking show. So the actual show comes out, and they always have a good, big initial reveal, and then a big hitter at the end, which of course we'll get into, because of course it's not what everybody wanted. But the show opens with Star Wars: Fate of the Old Republic. So this is going to be directed by Casey Hudson, who was the original director of Knights of the Old Republic and the Mass Effect games. Massive. Fantastic. Absolutely. I think this has been rumored for a bit, that the Old Republic series was coming back, and I'm very intrigued. I want another good BioWare-esque type game, and when you get Casey Hudson behind the wheel, fantastic. Here's the thing you aren't hearing, is that Casey Hudson also directed Anthem, the horrific bomb. And now, admittedly, I don't know if I fully blame Casey Hudson for that. And I do think also the hate for Anthem was a little over the top, considering like I actually played Anthem, not all of it, but I played it for like 5 hours, and I actually thought that game was pretty solid. It was once they started really pushing like the games as a service elements and like forcing me to grind and stuff, and like, actually engage with it as a games as a service, I was like, F this game, and I immediately bailed. But like at a core, like gameplay philosophy, I don't think a lot of what is in Anthem is horrific. But anyway, neither here nor there. It's just funny that like when Jeff Keighley introduced it, he was like, from the director of the original Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect, and not any of the games that people wouldn't like as much or like have a bad ring to them right now. Like certainly don't mention those. But anyway, Casey Hudson, I do trust. I think he'd be certainly a good lead behind this. Glad he's doing it. Bringing back the series, probably my top announcement from the main show overall. Really love the old school BioWare games. Mass Effect and Dragon Age are some of my favorite games of all time. So I would love to go back and play, Knights of the Old Republic. I've heard it's kind of wonky now, but like honestly, just the worlds, the characters of BioWare games, those have always been what makes those games so great. So like I think I could still probably stomach it. Kind of put it off on the back burner when I heard those games were being remade, and now I know that those remakes have kind of been in turmoil for a while. Who knows when you're going to get them? So probably best to just go ahead and play those anyway. But now I have way too many games to play. The same story over and over and over again. But this game kind of got hit with some initial controversy after it came out. This is one of the advantages of being late to the party, because Jason Schreier reported, hey, this game is likely like a PS like 7 game. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was essentially like this game is years out. It is going to be a long, long, long time. There is no way it comes out anytime soon because it's very early on in development, which I'm always skeptical when you show off a game and it's like, oh yeah, we just started developing this. It's like, we may never see this game. Like this game may never survive. You have no idea. And that's happened to several Star Wars games in the past, actually, is they've been shown off and then killed. Even though, we have a great trailer and it looks great and everybody seems to be high on it, it doesn't matter. They get killed off. So who knows? That could happen here. I don't like it when studios decide to do that and announce something so prematurely. But that sounded like a really long way, obviously. But then, of course, the creator came out, or not the creator, Casey Hudson came out and said, hey, I'm like not getting any younger. That's not anywhere near what we're expecting the development on this game to be. Kind of stuffed that into the ground. So, who will ultimately be right there? I mean, Casey Hudson can say like, oh no, I expect this development to be 3 to 4 years. And then it will take like 10. Who knows? Like, there's no way to really know until the game is in our hands. And who knows, maybe the development cycle that he's expecting is for us, maybe this is a smaller project than we expect, like maybe the budget is smaller. I don't know. I would expect it to not be. I would expect it to be a very big investment in a very big game, which you would assume would have a very long development cycle, but who knows? This is Casey Hudson, the director, saying he doesn't expect that to be the case. So we'll see, but a little bit of controversy surrounding that. Next was John Carpenter's Toxic Commando. Release date announced. This is a Left 4 Dead-like from the makers of World War Z. Would you like another World War Z / Left 4 Dead clone? Do you like Toxic Commando or John Carpenter, Toxic Avenger? I guess that's getting a lot of play right now. Well, that's another one of these. I'm not interested. Next was probably the biggest announcement of the show. Legit, like for most people, it's Divinity. Divinity is announced by Larian Studios, their biggest game. And going back to the Divinity franchise, which we already knew, Larian had said that they were not going to be making a Baldur's Gate 3. They don't own the Baldur's Gate IP, so they have to license it out. So in other words, a lot of the profits that go into pretty much any purchase or just making Baldur's Gate 3, they have to give to, I believe, Hasbro. I believe Hasbro owns the IP. It's Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro, I believe. So, yeah, they don't want to keep using Baldur's Gate as an IP because they don't own it. So they do own Divinity. Divinity Original Sins 1 and 2 are very similar games to Baldur's Gate. I have played Divinity Original Sin 2. Never played 1. Never really was interested in it. Played and beat Divinity Original Sin 2. And I have to say that I enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3 far more than I did Divinity 2. Now, originally, That game was pretty Eurojank. It was on a much smaller budget than Baldur's Gate 3. So that's a possibility as to why I felt that way. I would assume now Larian is probably well set with the success of Baldur's Gate 3. They have plenty of capital to invest in going back to Divinity and maybe learning with what they did in Baldur's Gate 3. And I was really hoping this was going to be like a departure into a different genre, make it an action RPG or something like that. I would have been so in on this game. It's not even funny. Not Baldur's Gate 3 was my game of the year, the year it came out, and those games are not typically the genre that I'm normally interested in, but it was so well done that even I could not deny that game is amazing. But like, it is not a game that a genre that I am super excited about to hear, and to hear them then come out and say this is going to be our biggest game ever. It's going to be way bigger than Baldur's Gate. Bro, it took me 120 hours to get through one playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if I can handle a game that's way bigger. Like, I got too much going on in life. That sounds a little intimidating, which we will get even further into in another game later in the show. But like, I don't know. I think the trailer looked cool, cinematic trailer. I think you can just expect Baldur's Gate, but Divinity. Which, by the way, Divinity is very similar to Baldur's Gate. It is meant to be a spin-off universe in a way. It's supposed to be very similar. So, if you liked Baldur's Gate, hopefully you like Divinity. So, next up, For Loop announced. So you may know this as the collaboration between Mike Booth and J.J. Abrams, which is going to be published by PlayStation. So this is Bad Robot's first gameplay venture. It was a news story a while back. I did not report on it here or did not talk about it here. Bad Robot is like a media group specifically for like TV and film. They normally do like animation and stuff, and they were like, we want to do video games. And so they partnered with PlayStation. And if you go into the briefing on this, you will see that really Bad Robot is kind of structuring itself as like, we are good because we have Hollywood connections. Like, what makes us truly valuable are our Hollywood connections. And that's why you have J.J. Abrams working on this video game. And it is a Left 4 Dead style shooter, and it's a roguelike. So every time you die, you get a new body, you go back out and you fight these aliens. It seems to have a very comical angle to it, and I can't say that anything else about this game really stuck out to me. I wasn't even very interested in its concept, and I can't say that the gameplay that I saw, which was very minimal, looked very interesting. So I think this is a game that was clearly the product of very good meetings, and not necessarily a very good concept. Like, this is basically Sony sat down and said, we can make a game with J.J. Abrams attached to it, and his creative energy should be enough to make this game a good game. Like, that's kind of where I kind of got the vibes of, because of Bad Robot and because of just seeing this game. But I was not as impressed with what I would have assumed talent like J.J. Abrams and Mike Booth would have brought to a game like this. So not very impressed with For Loop overall, but we're still very early. We still don't know a lot. Speaking of games I wasn't impressed with, this was not the case for Ontos. Ontos, the new horror game from Frictional Games, which you may know as the developers of Soma. Soma is a very well-known and well-respected horror game, psychological horror game, and I really like Soma. Soma isn't necessarily good for its horror elements. You can really almost ignore a lot of its horror elements. At least I did. It was very easy to do that playing Soma. But what you're really into Soma for is the narrative. Soma is focusing a lot on artificial intelligent life. At what point is a real, like a robot's life, a real life that you should legitimately care about? And, like, is it kind of effed up to put people in robot bodies, like transfer their minds into a robot? Does that make them a robot, or does that make them a person? There's a lot of psychological and interesting questions going on within Soma. And I'd highly, if any of that conversation just sounded interesting, highly recommend Soma, just for like, there's like a singular moment in that game that still sticks with me every once in a while that I'm like, oh dang, yeah, that's kind of effed up. And it's like probably not as bad as what you'd think when I say like that's effed up, but like still, Soma is a really cool game just because of his narrative. Not really because of anything else, but because of his narrative. And Ontos, hopefully, will be carrying that torch. It is a spiritual successor, and it looks like, based on the trailer, has a lot bigger budget behind it, which I am all about. Like, give me another Soma. Absolutely. I will highly be anticipating Ontos because I really think that if Soma was given a bigger budget and they could do something even bigger and grander with it, that would be an amazing game. So, very much looking forward to Ontos. Another game that I think is an interesting one to talk about is Coven of the Chicken Foot. So this is following a old lady and like a monster-esque thing. It's look, it's the Last Guardian. It's the freaking Last Guardian, except for it's not a little boy, it's an old lady. And like that's what you need to know. Okay? That's where we're at here with this. And what really makes it stand out is the director is Bruce Straley, who is the director of, you may know, The Last of Us. You know, Uncharted 2 and 3 and 4. You may know some of those. He was an ex-Naughty Dog dude. This Naughty Dog, before it was Neil Druckmann, was Neil and Bruce. It was often Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley working in conjunction with each other. And essentially, Bruce has kind of come out and he said, look, like working at Naughty Dog, it was cool and all, but I would really have preferred having like full control and like owning what I'm making. So like I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna make my own thing. Now it's very funny to see like Neil Druckmann has kind of taken over as like the name and face of what makes Naughty Dog so good. And Bruce is like, nobody remembers this guy. Here's the thing, is I didn't like The Last Guardian. I thought The Last Guardian kind of sucked. It kind of, in all honesty, cemented the director of The Last Guardian, who I do not remember the name of, I apologize, as a guy who got really lucky with the Shadow of the Colossus. Yes, Shadow of the Colossus. What the heck am I thinking? He got really lucky with Shadow of the Colossus, which I legitimately believe to be one of the best games ever made. He got lucky. Okay? I think Eco and I think The Last Guardian both kind of suck. And The Last Guardian, he was given all the resources in the world that went through a horrible development cycle for many, 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 many years. That used to be like the Hollow Knight Silk Song before Hollow Knight Silk Song. Is everybody be like, ooh, when is The Last Guardian going to get announced again? Where's The Last Guardian? Every single time anybody would talk about, ooh, what am I looking forward to in these award or in this showing at E3, it's like I hope The Last Guardian shows up, and then it did, and it sucked. Or it was very divisive. I'll say it was very divisive. But this looks like another one of those. And I will say that The Last Guardian has put such a bad taste in my mouth. I am not excited about Coven of the Chickenfoot at all. Even though it has a massive director behind it who's made some really great games, directed some really phenomenal titles with some really emotional and really great writing, I cannot imagine Coven of the Chickenfoot, based on what I've seen so far, to be something that I particularly care about. So good luck. Good luck to Coven of the Chickenfoot. I genuinely wish Bruce the best, and I'm sure this game will be good. I don't know if it'll be great. And it only time will tell. But I'm hoping maybe it can change my mind. Right now, I'm just personally not interested. Next, Resident Evil Requiem. Did you know Leon Kennedy was gonna be in the game? Yeah, I think everybody did. This is no surprise. This was leaked weeks before the Game Awards. Everybody has known for a long time that Leon was going to be a playable character. In fact, I think weeks before GameStop even leaked it, they like put up cover art of Leon on the cover for like a pre-order or something like that. So this has been out for a long time. It was certainly nothing crazy to hear. What the most interesting part about this was like seeing the gameplay of Leon and being like, oh, Leon's the action part of this game, and the girl is the horror part. And they even confirm that. Is like this game will be set in like two different like basically gameplay styles of horror and action. And I look again, I trust Capcom pretty implicitly right now, but at the moment, I don't know if I love that. Like that idea seems a little bit like I would rather the game be a little bit more, I don't know, cohesive. That's the word I was looking for. Cohesive. I would much rather the game be a little bit more cohesive. When you divide the game so starkly between, yeah, you're going to be kicking anus and taking names, and you're going to be scared and hiding in lockers. I don't know if I love the dichotomy there, the stark change back and forth, because who's to say if I like playing as Leon and I don't like playing the horror segments, that I'm gonna enjoy my time playing half the game. Like I don't know. Resident Evil, the mainline Resident Evil games have walked that line a lot better. Like I definitely feel like Resident Evil 8 most certainly was very good at kind of walking the balance of like this is a very scary game and it's an action game where you're also going to have like a fantasy fulfillment action element of it that you're kind of used to from more modern Resident Evil. And it seems like they're taking a step back from that almost in a way that I don't know is a great move, but I am willing to be proven wrong here, and I will certainly be playing this probably day one. Like I'm genuinely looking forward to this game. Really have enjoyed all the most recent Resident Evils, and I'm a big fan. So I can't wait. Let's see what it does. Next, Order of the Sinking Star. This is Jonathan Blow's new puzzle game, and it looks really puzzly. I am 100% not into this. It's way too smart for me. And not only that, but he said it was 500 hours to beat the game on for a normal person. Yo, I love a good value proposition. Don't get me wrong. I want a game to be a good bang for my buck, but 500 hours, I think once you hit 60, I'm like, we really need to think about cutting the rest of whatever you got. Like really, we really need to think about paring this down. 60 is like the max. I look at a game and I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to commit to that. And honestly, I would much rather your game be 15 to 20 hours. Much rather your game be 15 to 20 hours. So when you tell me, oh yeah, if you want to beat this game, just regularly 500. But if you want to do everything, 1,400 hours of content. Bro, chill. Just chill. Make a sequel. Dice that thing up into like 5 different freaking games and just give me the content for that 5 times. Like, what are we doing, man? Like, you don't have to kill yourself like this. You're okay. You don't have to make these many puzzles. But you're going to be playing as multiple people, and it's going to be like an open world puzzle game where you have to kind of swap between these people to unlock all these puzzles. It seems like an interesting idea, way out of my depth in terms of like I played The Witness and I felt stupid as frick. Like this is Jonathan Blow, obviously the guy behind The Witness and Braid. Also the guy who is very vocal about his opinions in game development and politics. He's very conservative. He's got a lot of, you know, outspoken and divisive comments that have upset people in the gaming industry. I I don't how big is the hardcore puzzle audience out there? How big is the hardcore puzzle audience that's going to be like, yeah, We want 5 million hours of the most hardcore like, I feel like you are really lowering your audience down to a small niche of like Einstein level puzzle solvers. And I don't even know how many people are out there that like want that or are even applicable to that, you know? So I don't know how much more I have to say about the Sinking Star other than I'm 100% not going to play it until it becomes free at some point, where I will play it for a maximum of 2 minutes and realize that I'm the dumbest man on the planet. Next was Exodus trailer. Will be coming out in 2027. This is the people who helped make Mass Effect, and had Matthew McConaughey will be in the game. The narration was done by Matthew McConaughey. I need to see more is essentially the vibe I get from this. Cool that we have a big celebrity attached to it. Cool that the Mass Effect people are working on it. I don't think I've seen anything other than cinematic trailers for this. We need other stuff to prove to me that this game is in any way coming together into a cool thing that I want to play. Next was Dungeons and Dragons Warlock, which actually is not the case. It's actually called Warlock: Dungeons and Dragons. Cool. This was an entirely CG trailer. It had Tricia Helfer. Is that how you spell? Is that how you pronounce her name? She's from Battlestar Galactica. I have never watched Battlestar Galactica, so I don't know anything about her. Apparently, she's in a nerd show. This is going to be a nerd game. We know nothing about it other than maybe coming out 2027. We're going to get a gameplay reveal at Summer Games Fest in 2026. Look forward to it then. I don't talk about frickin' CGI trailers. Next, Control Resonant, also known as Control 2, which I did not know that. I had to actually look at the press release to find out that this is intended to be the sequel to Control. Control Resonant is an action game, so there is no gun in this game. And I thought it was a spin-off game based on the way it was named. It is taking place in New York. The Hiss has kind of gotten out of its controlled area within the oldest house, and it is now running rampant. And so you have to, you're playing as the brother of the main character of Control 1. You're having to go out and fight lots of supernaturally sci-fi-y things to try and get things back under control, which, cool. Here's the thing. Love the diversity in the game here, considering we're not just like making another Control, but just a little bit better. Like, I am cool with the fact that it's an action game. Don't know if that means it'll be good, because it's not iterating on necessarily what made Control really good. But here's the thing is, love Remedy. Remedy is a great studio. They made Alan Wake 2. It was a phenomenal game. Love Alan Wake 2. Remedy has always been, I know a lot, Control 1 has a lot of fans out there, a lot of supporters. I think Control 1 is a good game, not a great game. And that is what I think of most of Remedy's titles. In fact, I think Remedy is the master of that, with exception. Obviously, FBC Firebreak, is a total flop. Nobody liked it. Cool. It's a live service game. That was always going to happen. So that was an outlier for them. And then I think Alan Wake 2 is another outlier in which they made a phenomenal, great game from beginning to end. I think every other game I've ever played from Remedy, it's good. It's a good game. Not a great game, but it's a good game. And I think Control falls into that bucket of like, yeah, this is a solid 8, maybe 8.5. You know, I'd recommend Control to the right person, absolutely. And so, like, I need a little bit more from Remedy to get, like, legitimately excited about another Control game. Because, like, while I love Alan Wake, great game, I thought Control 1 was good. And I need to know more about Resonant in order to fully be excited about it. Next, Gang of Dragon. This is an interesting one because it's from the director of Yakuza. So this trailer looked like a Yakuza game. I thought it was another Yakuza game from the studio behind Yakuza. It's not. It's from the original creator of Yakuza. So what the story behind this is the director of the Yakuza series left, and he was basically bankrolled by China to make his own studio. And so he did. And this is the first game he's made, is Gang of Dragon, which is, as everybody's liking to point out, very funny because now the Yakuza series, which is not under him anymore, is called, the Dragon series, and Yakuza is a different thing. So, it's very funny that this is what the name is called. You're playing as a big burly Yakuza member, and you're probably doing the exact same thing you did in Yakuza. And I hold judgment. I wait to hold judgment on this. This is a completely CG trailer. I would love to see this game possibly do other things than Yakuza has been doing. It is. I mean, I've stated before, like I really enjoyed the first Yakuza game I played, and I thought the next Yakuza game I played was good, and then I played another Yakuza game, and I was like, dang, these are the same freaking game. And then I played Judgment, and I was like, wow, this is another Yakuza game, and then it just kind of kept going like that. The games very rarely iterate on themselves in any meaningful way, at least when I was playing them, and it completely burned me out of the series. I'd love to go back if I had the time and play Like a Dragon, but I don't. So it's very, because it's at least different than the rest of the series. But I struggle to find the time. So saying that, I don't know how excited I am about another Yakuza game because I need to be told, it needs to be proven to me how big of a deal, how big of a departure, what makes this different than playing one of the 18 Yakuza games that continually come out once a year. Like, why do I need to play this one? Is essentially what I would ask. And I'm interested to see what the answer is. Next, Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight release date. It's going to be May 29th, 2026. People seem to be legitimately excited about this. I don't know. Lego games, Arkham Combat, I don't know. Lego games are always okay. Like, they're always fine. So like I don't know how excited to be about a Lego Batman game. I guess if you just are so starved for an Arkham experience, I think this will be a fine stopgap for you for a series you'll probably never see again from the same people. But like, hey, it's fine looking, I guess. I don't know why people are so excited about it though. Next, Tomb Raider came back with two announcements. First off was Tomb Raider Catalyst. So Tomb Raider Catalyst is going to be, yeah, Tomb Raider Catalyst is the new game. So that one's the one. So shows how educated I am on Tomb Raider. I've only played the more modern ones. But it's made by Crystal Dynamics. It's due in 2027. But in conjunction with that, which was kind of sloppily handled, to be frank, because I didn't realize when the trailer for one of these began and one of them ended, is Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis, which you may recognize as the original Tomb Raider game. They are remaking from the ground up the Tomb Raider game. And it's very obvious to me when I saw a dinosaur on the screen. I was like, oh, I remember that in the original Tomb Raider. Oh, this is the original Tomb Raider. Okay. And the platforming looks fairly similar and so on and so forth. It's interesting because they have Flying Wild Hog on this. So you may know them as the what is it? Shadow Warriors. They're the Shadow Warriors developers, which are known to be like pretty okay games. They're not known to be great, but like it's a remake, so like what do you do? Those are the kind of studios you typically get for games like this. But I don't know how excited I am for a revival of the old Tomb Raider games. I'm not gonna lie, the old Tomb Raider games, I get they're classics. People love them. They have a huge connection to them. Here's the thing. I think those games did not age well at all. They are really clunky to play. Obviously, the platforming is going to be completely different. They're almost like puzzle platformers. It's kind of crazy. If you go back and play them, you'd probably know what I'm talking about. But the controls in that and the platforming in that are really clunky and really precise to a point where you really have to master the movement of Lara Croft in order to freaking go anywhere, which really turned me off to those games very quickly. But they're going to be remaking it. I don't know how you translate that to a modern setting, but good luck. The clear idea here is to have this game come out in 2026 and then the new game come out in 2027 when, they're, kind of building on the momentum of that as a series. Crystal Dynamics obviously now owned by Amazon, so this will be one of Amazon's first big games they've published in a minute. I don't know how to feel about this. I do think that the new Tomb Raider look, the modernized remake look, is like a perfect modern classic looking Tomb Raider. Lara Croft looks great. So hopefully both the games are great. I am interested. I'm holding my breath, but we shall see. They're clearly going to have to change so much about the original, and so much of that game is going to be lost in translation that I don't know how it will be, but we'll see. We'll see. Cross your fingers. Next, we saw the bad guy reveal for 007 First Light. It's going to be, what's his name? Lenny Kravitz, the singer. Okay. We learned nothing else new about that game. Next was a CG trailer for the next Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred reveal. I haven't played Diablo 4, so I don't know anything about this. And look, Blizzard's cinematic trailers are always hype as frick. They're always great. I have no idea what's going on in any of them, but they're always really cool. So great. That game's going to come out on April 28th. So look forward to it if you love Diablo 4. Next, Lords of the Fallen 2. Bro, I don't know. Am I crazy? I keep talking about Lords of the Fallen like people care about it. Is that accurate? I don't know. I keep talking about Lords of the Fallen. It was originally a PlayStation 3 game that bombed. It was a critical failure. I'm pretty sure a commercial one as well. And then they rebooted it. And then they rebooted it again. For some reason. To a point where I was so confused, I was like, didn't we just get a Lords of the Fallen game? Why are we making another Lords of the Fallen game that's not a second one? It's no, it was another reboot. It's what the frick? They just made another one. Now they're making Lords of the Fallen 2, which is a sequel to the most recent reboot. What the frick? Who's buying these games? Who likes Lords of the Fallen? And those games, by the way, were not massive critical successes either. So they were not these blow out of the wild, game of the year, Lords of the Fallen. It's I have no idea how this continues to be brought up and who loves these games so much. I don't know, but I guess kudos to them. Next, No Law. No Law is from the makers of The Ascent, which people thought was okay. It's like a cyberpunk shooter. Good kudos. Again, I don't know what they expect here, but I see a lot of people talking about this game they're excited about it. I have to imagine it's just an eagerness to explore a cyberpunk setting. Cyberpunk 2077 kind of kicked that off, and now everybody wants to do that, which I get it. It's an interesting setting, but I don't know. I don't particularly think these developers are that talented. Yeah, I've heard of The Ascent. I even played it a little bit. I jumped out pretty fast, but the game was not reviewed very well. So it's just kind of weird to see everybody jump on this and be like, yo, can't wait. It's from the makers of The Ascent. It's like, okay, like, did you like this? Did you play The Ascent? Like, I don't know. They're also very different games too. I'm pretty sure The Ascent is like a top-down isometric dungeon crawler. Like, I don't know why we're comparing the two. Like, this is a very big deal. But like, maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. But like, I don't know. People seem to be high on it, but I don't get it. Next, we had the dude from Stranger Things come out, and he said that Total Warhammer 40K is announced. I don't play RTSs, so I know almost nothing about this other than people really like Warhammer a lot. And if you like Warhammer, you really, really like Warhammer. So you should be very happy that you're getting another Warhammer RTS. Good for you. Next, Ace Combat 8 Wings of Thief announced. Cool. I don't care about Ace Combat at all. It seems like there's a very devout hardcore following for Ace Combat. It's become a lot more cinematic recently, which is great. Good for them. But don't know how much I love the Ace Combat games. They're just not a huge flights. It almost feels like a flight sim. It's too much flight sim. I would rather it be more arcadey, just for my own personal tastes. I get Ace Combat has a very, devout following that really enjoys the games. Great. I I don't love flight simmy games. Like, I cannot imagine a least sexy game than like Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator. And like Ace Combat is kind of a weird like middle ground between, like, it's really not even a middle ground. It's like, what if it's just you take a step in between? If like Star Fox 64 is on one side and Microsoft Flight Simulator is on the other, and like you just take like a step and a half away from Microsoft Flight Sim. That's like kind of where I'm at with the vibe of Ace Combat as just a general observer, and I don't know how much I'm into that, but it is what it is. Next, Star Wars Galactic Racer brings back pod racing. Coming in 2026, I remember playing, I don't remember the name because I only played it at a friend's house, but it was like the N64. It was like a pod racing game based on like the prequel game. The prequel, obviously based on the prequels. That's where pod racing was introduced in Star Wars. But based on those movies, when I was a kid, they were coming out, and so they made a game around it. And I remember I had a lot of friends that really liked that game. I just liked arcadey racers. Who doesn't like a good arcadey racer, right? Mario Kart, you know what I'm saying? But in this instance, they're bringing it back, which I don't know if they've done that since then. But I'm not particularly excited about this game. But like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably have nostalgic connections to that game that would love to see another pod racing game. So good for you guys, man. I'm genuinely actually kind of happy for you there. Next, Phantom Blade Zero again. We're getting a release date, which is September 9th, 2026. This is another frickin' Souls like from the East, like from, I think, China. But like, this was the showstopper at, I believe, Summer Games Fest. Really had not super interesting to me. It's another Souls like to me. I'm not particularly interested, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything crazy that's like, oh, that's way more interesting than what I thought it was going to be, kind of deal. So like, cool. Another showing of this game that I'm not particularly excited about. Ooh, sorry to interrupt. This is Future Henry coming in, editing the podcast, and I realized that I did not talk about Mega Man Dual Override, so I'm using the Rock, Paper, Shotgun list of announcements from the Game Awards, and they did not have that, which I would consider to be one of the main announcements of the show. So sorry to any other announcements that I may have missed based on that, but I definitely recognize, like, hey, I wanted to talk about that Dual Override game that they announced. So Mega Man Dual Overrides was then announced at the Game Awards. This is the first Mega Man game since 2018. The previous Mega Man game Mega Man 11 got an 82 on Metacritic, so not fantastic critical reception. Mega Man, obviously known as one of the main video game icons, likely of all time. It's just very interesting. I don't see a lot of clamoring for him other than things out of nostalgia. And it seems like Capcom doesn't really care about him either. I've never been a huge Mega Man fan. I understand the appeal, but I've never resonated with a Mega Man game that I've played up to this point. Um, cool. It's another 2D Mega Man game. I don't think anybody. I think people want to see the next evolution of Mega Man. They don't want to see just another Mega Man, because so far the other Mega Men that have been created in the past decade or so have not been like these revolutionary, groundbreaking, mega ultimate, whatever you want to call it, mega dual override games that people really care about. So I'm just a little concerned about how Capcom seems to be treating Mega Man, their franchise that they clearly just don't think is that important to them anymore, and how they don't seem to feel like they have any way of making him relevant outside of just kind of keeping him the exact same that he's always been, after over a decade. And or not over a decade, but at this point, what, 2018, so 7 years, 8 years. It's just, I don't know. It seems very lackluster. Even though this trailer was a massive, like, very big build up and like very trying to build this out as something grand and massive. It's like, okay, it's also not coming out until 2027, which is another, like, why are we even talking about this game? Like, it's doesn't seem like that big of a game. It's just going to be another classic Mega Man, and it's not coming out for like another few years. Like, why are we really even talking about this? Like, it doesn't seem like you care that much. It doesn't seem like there's much to care about here in general, other than Mega Man is not dead, which is kind of crazy that we have to even say that in the first place. But that's all I had to say about that. I will bring you back to present Henry now. And finally, we made it to the end. The final, last announcement from the makers of Apex Legends and Titanfall. We have High Guard. High Guard, which is another hero shooter. I'm still kind of figuring out exactly what it is. It's basically Overwatch with horses. I thought it looked cool. Here's the thing. It's free to play. It's coming out January 26th. So you will be able to play this game very soon, in about 1 month. Easy peasy. Okay? This response to this game's reveal was so vitriolic and so, in my opinion, unexpected. I didn't even know it was happening. Like, every time I've heard somebody talk about this game, it's like, oh yeah, everybody freaking hates that game. You go to the YouTube trailer on this, it's like mostly dislikes. I'm like, what the frick did these guys do to you? This game does not look that bad. It does not. I'm like, somebody point out to me what the problem here is. And literally the only thing I've ever heard anyone say is, this game is another hero shooter, and I'm not that interested in it, and it shouldn't have been the final reveal for the Game Awards because it needed to be something that I actually gave a frick about. And I'm like, how does the placement in the Game Awards make you hate the game? Like, you can be like, oh man, I really wish that there was a bigger game there. Or like, oh man, like, yeah, they probably should have swapped, like the freaking Jedi reveal or Divinity. Like, that should have been the final one, and that would have been really cool. But like, how does it make, like, you can maybe get frustrated with Jeff Keighley for his placement, but why are you taking it out on this game? Like, why do you think this game sucks? Just because it's another hero shooter? Honestly, it's got a good pedigree behind it. It looked kind of cool to me. Like, I don't play multiplayer games, to be frank, very often at all. I don't see myself playing this game at any point, really, unless it blows the frick up and everybody says it's like the best game ever. maybe I'll give it a shot because it's free. But like I genuinely do not see what is wrong with this game in comparison to something like literally anything else that's on the market. We have not played it. It does look somewhat different. It does look fun. In all honesty, to me, it looks kind of fun. I can't believe there's such a big response that it, like, being the final reveal for the Game Awards basically tanked this game. And it makes no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, hate the playa, not the game. Hate the fact that it was the last reveal, sure, but I mean, you don't have to hate this freaking game that legitimately I think has a pedigree and a chance of being a legitimately good game. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's kind of crazy. But that was the final reveal. I don't understand why people were so pissed about it, but it was. And I genuinely am kind of concerned that the game's livelihood is on the line because of it, and that just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to put an entire team's livelihood on the line because it was not supposed to be the right reveal at the very end of the Game Awards. I don't know. Just seems so odd. But anyway, overall, I think this was a good show. I think it was a good show. I think it's really hard to make a 4-hour show worth your time. I think now, obviously, there's no E3, so it makes it really hard to have a good show, or it makes it really hard for anybody to really do anything at a big event. Like, this is the only big event now, right? They kind of got a monopoly on it. You got to go to Jeff Keighley to get a lot of eyeballs on your game, which now it was apparently live streamed to 117 million people or something insane, something crazy. The Game Awards is clearly like the de facto place you have to go if you want the best bang for your buck in marketing. There's a big controversy around $1 million for a 3-minute ad, and it's like, no, I kind of get it. Like, it really, based on the numbers this thing pulls, it really just makes sense that they're able to charge that much. But I think there were a lot of announcements here that I actually was really excited about. I think it makes 2026 look really good moving forward, which I was really surprised about. I assumed everybody kind of blew their load in 2025 expecting, Grand Theft Auto to come out, and now Grand Theft Auto is coming out next year, and I was like, oh, well, clearly we should be good to go. And it's like, nope, everybody's still announcing games. It's still a big deal to, still getting your game out. I'm like, okay, good. That's awesome. There's no slowing down. Give me more good games. That's great. But I'd probably give this game like a B, like overall. Like, I think like it's really hard to make a show this long have nothing but announcements that I think are massive and are tailored to me. And like something like Ace Combat, I'm sure made a lot of people really excited, but it didn't make me excited. So like it's not my game. So like it's impossible for every one of these shows to be fully packed with games that everybody's going to think are hype and crazy and cool. There's just no way, right? So it is what it is. I think for what it is, they did a really good job putting a show together. I think, honestly, my game of show was probably Bradley the Badger. The game that I'm genuinely looking forward to the most and think I will have the most fun with is probably Bradley the Badger, if not the new Knights of the Old Republic game. Probably be the one I'm looking forward to most. Who knows when either one of those games are coming out? Neither one of them had a firm release year attached to them. But in terms of those are my studs. To quote Cam, in terms of a dud, I don't even know. I don't even think there really was anything that I was like, oh, dude, yeah, that looks like it sucks. Like, it either I didn't know enough about it to hate it, or like it's not for me. I'd probably say something like a For Loop. For Loop is something that would be my dud because it has such a big names behind it, and just because of the pedigree, you're expecting so much more. I don't get much from For Loop. So probably if I had to choose something that I wasn't as into in this show, it would be that. But overall, I think that's really strong. I think that's really strong. like I think I would play a lot of these games, and I think I'm looking forward to several of them, which I don't always say for these presentations. So I'm actually very pleased with the Game Awards this year. Awards wise, obviously there's a little bit more of a controversy there on whether that's good or bad, but it is what it is. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Um, and I look forward to it next year, as I always do. So, moving on. Next, we have a small, teensy tiny, itsy bitsy little news topic. This is my podcast, by the way. I get to talk about what I want to, not just the stuff that everybody's talking about that would clearly people be more interested in. But I'm a huge Sucker Punch head. And I am going to talk about Brian Flemming, one of the co-founders. There were 7 co-founders of Sucker Punch. Is leaving. He is departing. So Sucker Punch was initially a bunch of Microsoft developers that split off and made their own studio. They initially developed Robot on Wheels, Rocket Robot on Wheels. Excuse me. It's the only game from them I've never played, and I certainly have an intent to. I'd like to at some point. But they made Rocket Robot on Wheels. It was published by Microsoft. It was only on the N64. And then they went on and made, of course, my favorite gaming franchise of all time, Sly Cooper. 1, 2, and 3 within their first 4 years of development. And then they went on to make the Infamous series, Infamous 1, 2, and Infamous Second Son. And then, of course, Ghost of Yotei and Ghost of Tsushima. All of which I think are fantastic games. They're probably my favorite development studio ever. Just their entire catalog of work is something that I love and cherish. Obviously, love Nate Fox. He's probably the most public facing of the initial founders and is still going to be there and, be a creative lead there and a director. So Brian Flemming, sad to see you go. But I think it depends on who you ask. But I think Sucker Punch is still certainly in good hands. It's good to see Sucker Punch get some mainstay play in terms of the news headlines because they don't often get that because they are they're one of those studios I feel like people underestimate until they come around and actually make something. Like it's always like, oh dude, yeah, Sucker Punch. Like everybody thinks about the big studios and is like, yeah, Rockstar, Blizzard, blah, 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 Nintendo, all those big guys. Those are the big developers. And then like nobody talks about Sucker Punch. Not a soul. Nowhere in the conversation. And then whenever they make a game, it's always like, yo, Sucker Punch really made a great game. Love this game. Fantastic developer. And I'm like, yeah, I already knew that. I talk about them all the time like they're gods. So like kind of sad that nobody else does that. But anyway, that was just a short little thing I just wanted to give lip service to. Excuse me. Brian Flemming, you the GOAT, you the man. Sad to see you leave, but enjoy your retirement and or making your own studio. That seems to be the two things people tend to do when they leave. And our final news topic is kind of a slew of them. It kind of blew up out of the blue, and I thought it was certainly worth talking about. I had a pretty much a massive segment of the previous show dedicated to AI usage, and in general, really, it kind of devolved into a massive conversation just about AI in general. Little did I know that there was going to be so much AI controversy over the next week or so that this is kind of where we're at. There were about 3 or 4 major developers that were kind of caught up in a big statement about AI usage or, like controversy or like admitting AI usage. And so I kind of wanted to go through a couple of those and talk about them. So they all kind of correlate, obviously, because it's all about AI. But the first one was Larian. So the makers of Baldur's Gate, obviously, the big reveal at the Game Awards was the Divinity trailer, and they came out and they admitted to using AI in helping develop Divinity. So they said they, quote, used it to come up with ideas, produce placeholder text, develop concept art, and create materials for PowerPoint presentations. And yeah, I mean, like, this is not too big of a surprise, at least in my personal opinion. But this resulted in a massive backlash. People, and I mean, I am on the forefront of this. Okay, like all of my YouTube shorts, all of my content that I post on the internet now gets absolutely bombarded with people hating AI because I'm using AI as like a personal filter for my face, and it's absolutely, in my opinion, absurd the crazy backlash that comes from this and from just any kind of AI usage. Doesn't matter the amount of AI usage, which by the way, like 1/8 of the population uses ChatGPT regularly. So like you are one of the few, honestly, eventually, if not now, soon, you'll be one of the few who does not use AI at all. And there are definitely different ways to use AI too that isn't just ChatGPT. Like certain tools and applications are AI functions and tools that are just AI that are specifically filtered down to a singular purpose, not just a general kind of usage. But what people really jumped on here is that I see, at least with the major problems, is like developing concept art, which is essentially like everybody knows like AI models are essentially created through funneling a lot of information into the models, and then they take and basically copy and paste and kind of rearrange various ideas or pictures or whatever into creating a new one, is kind of the limited high level knowledge of how AI typically works. Um, that is also how human brains work, believe it or not. But, to a different extent, obviously. But, you know, Larian had to come out eventually and kind of, because they had such a massive backlash. They actually scheduled an AMA on Reddit to try and address all concerns in the future because of it was such a massive backlash. But they essentially said, look, we've only used the development for concept art was kind of the biggest, most egregious thing here, because it would be taking elements from other people's art and producing a piece of art. So that's, a little bit more cheaty than the other things, which would maybe mainly be used for like inspiration. And they were like, look, we really just use it as like something to inspire concept art, to research concept art, to then give to our concept artists to create real concept art that we then use within the game. So like essentially the concept art that they're using in conjunction with AI, they're basically saying we don't actually use that to make the game. We use it to help make the actual human-made concept art that then goes into the game. So a little bit better, but still it begs the question, like, why not just let your concept artist do that handmade or whatever? And, at what point are you eventually going to start cutting concept artists from work because, AI is going to be doing their jobs? Look, people, that's just going to be everybody. It's just going to be everybody, okay? Look, I'm in IT, all right? I am on the front line of this too. Art people are absolutely getting screwed. Okay? You're the first people that AI has, for whatever reason, decided I can do your job and put you out of work. Okay? You are. And it sucks. I'm IT. I'm like number 2 on the list. Okay? My jobs are they are coming for my jobs. Coding, like analyzing things, all that good stuff is stuff AI is doing really freaking well right now, and they are going to come for me. They are coming. I feel your pain, okay? If not now, I will feel it very, very much in the future, okay? So, like, I get it. I get the frustration. Everyone is going to be hit by this. Everyone is going to be hit by this. You are not going to be able to avoid it. And I'm sorry to say, this is just something we're going to have to figure out. It's something we're going to have to figure out. And to be like, oh, you can't have a game that doesn't have AI in it, you're crazy. Moving on, because all of this, speaking of that, it's all kind of tying together. CG Project Red says, look, we're using it too. But we're only using it for quote unquote productivity areas. So they didn't come out and admit anything that people got pissed off at. They were just like, look, we're using it to make things faster. It's like, okay, so now we have CD Projekt Red saying, look, we already use AI. Okay, fan favorite CD Projekt Red, already using it. Now this gem falls out of the sky. Claire Obscure devs admit that they have been using AI to make parts of their game. And in conjunction, the Indie Game Awards, which, by the way, I've never heard of, which have a strict no AI policy, drop them from their awards. Because they realize, oh, they admitted they used generative AI, and we were like told that they didn't when they submitted it. Now that we know, we're just taking them off the list, and everybody that won or everybody that lost to Claire Obscure, the runner up gets the award now, which is crazy. Because here's what Claire Obscure devs came out and said that they did use AI for. They said, hey, look, we used it, sure, but we used it for placeholder art for a newspaper on a post, and we realized we forgot that it was in the game, and we plugged it back in with a hotfix like less than a week after the game came out. I think it was like 4 days. 4 days after the game came out, we realized that we had left it in there, and we went back and we swapped it lickety split. No problems. I am of the opinion that is likely what freaking happened. Okay? They probably didn't actually make a developer go back and make a legitimate, newspaper for them to put in the game because everybody's on us. They figured out we used AI. So like, if that is the standard we have for like, we cannot have indie, like just placeholder art, you just generating placeholder art to wait for like a developer or an artist to actually make that art. People. I don't know what you want. I don't know where do you draw the line? Because we are going to be there real fast. You're going to have to start coming up with some new excuses to hate AI if that's where like you're coming from. I think if this is the hill we're dying on, you're making the anti-AI crowd look freaking stupid. Like, I'm just going to say that. You just are. Which, speaking of AI defenders, only one developer came out and spoke of the positives, perhaps, behind AI, and that was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's developer, who came out and said, look, I hate to be the realist of the real, but most studios are using this stuff. All right? We're already so deep in it, and I think it has to be, right? If these indie devs are using it, no doubt these massive corporate developers have they're so deep into it. So deep into it. No shot. But anyway, they are making these games with AI. He's like, look, most people are using it. Okay? And I am a defender of it. This is what his words. He said, look, man, I'm 50 years old. Dev cycles are crazy. They take 5 to 10 years to make a game now. Multi-millions of dollars, like 300 people are going to be doing this stuff. And I don't got that kind of time. I have a lot of ideas up in my head, and I want to get them out. I want people to play my games, and I don't want to be stuck on maybe making 5 games my entire life. Like, and that's if like you started when you were pretty freaking young. Like, if you got out of college and started developing games and it took you 10 years to make a game, yeah, you're going to make like 5 games your entire life. If you did that nonstop and if you somehow had the bankroll to actually make that work out for you. Like, yeah. So that's kind of crazy, right? And, he thinks people are overreacting to the technology currently. And look, maybe we could be living in like a Terminator situation where everybody's going to die. But like right now, people really need to kind of chill out. And I actually genuinely check. He went on, and it's a long diatribe from him too, on a lot of the positives, like what AI can do to really help out developers and the positives behind it. Because like when I hear AI usage typically promoted, it's from a corporate standpoint of like, well, we just need to make games. We need to make them fast because we need to increase productivity to then increase profits. And I get it. And that's what I'm hearing. Like, I went to a job interview a couple of weeks ago, and that was like one of the main things that they were pushing in my interview is like, look, we're going to be using a lot of AI. Like, we're going to be using a lot of AI. We want you to be proficient with AI because we want, and I pushed back on that. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Look, okay, AI, cool, whatever, great. But at what point does this thing just become me? Like, when do I get canned over this, you know? And they're like, well, you're not going to get canned. Like, that won't happen. You know, like, we would just think that it'll make you more productive. Like, you'll just be more productive. At some point, give it a couple years, baby. This thing's going to be way better than me at whatever I can do. I genuinely think within 2 to 5 years, every AI is going to be super proficient. They're going to be able to learn things super fast. They're going to be PhD level smart. They're going to be able to go into systems and work on things and actively move things around. Why do you need me anymore? You don't. So when I go into an interview and they say, yeah, AI is going to be a big push for us, that's scary. Okay? So I get why people are against AI, but I also think, look, this is like what people probably said when the steam engine happened, right? Is they said, look, it's bad for the environment. It's not what we're used to. It's going to kill off so many people's jobs. All those people who make horse-drawn carriages and buggies, they're going to be out of work. And I don't know about this whole steam engine thing. And here we are. It's like, well, yeah, it genuinely improved our society, and there's no way we can go back to just being in horse-drawn buggies and carriages. And I think that's where we are with AI. I think we already are clearly seeing developers say, hey, we are AI people now. If you aren't using AI, you're not one of us. And I think a lot of people clearly see the horrific backlash to AI. And they're saying, hey, we aren't talking about it, but we're using it because, duh, it's going to significantly increase our productivity and therefore we'll be able to make more games and make more money. Duh. But like, you know, I feel like I'm rehashing a lot of what I talked about in the last episode, but I think that this is now like all of these statements are essentially just proof that there is no getting out of this. Like, I think that if you are an anti-AI hater, you need to really rethink why. You need to really rethink what AI is doing, where it's going, and how you can live in the same world as it, because it's clearly going to be a problem for you. And I hope it doesn't become a problem for you, but like, if you are going to be so anti-AI, you really need a good reason. You need a good reason, and you need to be able to really fight against the fact that you are going to be heavily entangled in products that use it for a lot of different reasons in the future. But I don't know. The episode's already going long. I knew it would. But that's all I had to say about that. All right, so enough of the news. We're done with the news. We're on to impressions. Now, as I said, I've been very, very busy over the past couple of weeks. It will be for the next few, I'm sure, as life tends to happen. But for you, dear listener, I have something set aside. I played a game last couple of weeks, and I wrote down some notes about it. I have thoughts, and I am willing and able to tell you about Despelote. I bought this on a discount after seeing it get great critical reviews. This is at an 89 on Metacritic, and I heard it had the best ending of the year, which I am a massive sucker for. Nothing better than like an end that culminates into something, like ties a ribbon on everything you've seen and makes something really great. I think typically endings are what makes the greatest narratives the greatest. But I was surprised after doing a lot more research to see a bit more of a divide amongst critical and user response. So on Metacritic, it's 89 right now, but it's a 6.1. So knowing that this game had been nominated for a lot of awards and gotten a lot of praise since its release, it made me wonder, why the heck is there this huge barrier, this huge gap between both user and critical scores. And, well, let's just say I have an answer. So stick around to the end to find out. But Despelote is a game that focuses on a very young boy and his love for soccer. The game is set in the early 2000s, where Ecuador is going through some massive upheaval in their economy, and the country comes together for their love for soccer and their national team making it to the qualifier. It's very rooted in reality, very down to earth game. The game definitely still has some artsy moments, to be sure, some maybe pretentious moments, you could say. And I don't think that all of them land as well as they maybe could have, but the majority of the game takes place in the developer's childhood park that he grew up in, and it has a very real feel to it. All the dialogue is very natural. Characters you meet speak in a way that's reminiscent of the time and feels very normal, very like I could relate to a lot of the way people were speaking. It didn't feel written, it felt real. The game is about reliving this childhood experience. And as someone who was around in the same age and time as the guy who's in this game, this is literally like the closest I've ever felt to somebody making my childhood a reality. Now, I obviously didn't grow up in Ecuador and I don't care about soccer, but like everything else in this game feels so real. Like the way adults are always talking like you're not actually there. Like they're talking about some, big economic policy, and you don't even understand it really as a kid. You don't follow what they're saying, but you also don't even really care about understanding it. Like you're not going to ask questions and you're not really going to focus on it. Like you care about other things. So like that felt natural. The way you're always being led around and things, to do things you don't want to do, but you have to just try and find a way to make it like you actually want to be there and like find a way to make things fun. Like there's a segment in the game where you go to like your cousin's wedding or something like that, some family member's wedding, and like the entire time you're just bored and you're just running around like trying to find anything to fill the time, hiding under tables and kicking around things like a soccer ball and stuff like that. And like I can genuinely relate to those times as like going to church as a kid. I would be drug along to church events as a child, and I would do the exact same thing. I would just try to find literally any way to make anything in the environment somewhat bearable to be like fun and to be around, because like adult gatherings are boring, but like as a kid you're just like, yeah, dude, there's a table that's now a cave, and like you're just gonna make do and figure that out. And so like I've genuinely felt that was really represented well here. This game also uses gameplay to help tell the story in a natural way for the game, and yeah, like for ways that I personally respect. Like you can only interact with objects if they're a soccer ball. Like the whole world is kind of filtered through this lens of soccer for a kid. And if you ever go by a TV or if there's ever any mention of soccer, like you kind of lose control of the character and they just kind of start honing in on that exact thing. And it really did make me feel like, one, I was feeling through the mechanics of the game like I understood how this child felt, and two, like I felt like I had been there. Like I felt like, oh, I only care about this one thing. Like then to me it was video games as a kid. It was like if somebody's talking about a video game, if I can pretend I'm playing a video game, like that is the height of my day. So like I'm gonna try and make that a lot more incorporated into how my day to day goes. And it doesn't feel like as artsy as some movie director who just made the game and then said, "Oh, here's a mechanic to use at the very end of the game to justify it." Like a lot of artsy games who typically are well known for like their artsy representation or having some really innovative thing. I don't feel like they ever do that. Like my the two references I always go with are like Near and like A Tale of Two Brothers, or Tale of Two Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. More so Near. Brothers does it a lot better, but like Brothers, you're really building up to like a finale moment that the mechanics finally transition into, and while I think that's much better, like I don't think that the rest of the game is really worth that build up per se, to get to that one final moment where like that one thing that like, oh well, that's what's going on here, that's why this is the way it is. um Near is a much better representation of that, whereas Brothers, I don't feel like I feel like it's cool, I just feel like it probably, you don't need a whole game to do what they did. Near, it's like you have a whole regular game, and then at the very end of both Near games, there's just this weird freaking thing that nobody's ever thought of before, or that's really kind of a cool idea in concept, but I don't think it fits with the narrative of the game or the themes of the game at all, like especially Near Automata. Like I really don't think that the ending of Near Automata, while it is like a cool moment in the game and I love the moment, I don't think it necessarily gels well with the rest of the game. Whereas Despelote has basically all of their moments mechanically feel very solid and very cohesive to what this game is. Um, I was really curious about the ending because everybody had said it was so good. And I was like, well, what could possibly be the ending to this very grounded game about soccer? Like, like what could be the big twist? Like what twist can you have in this grounded game about soccer that's going to even be remotely surprising? Like this kid has been dead the whole time, or maybe he's a clone from the future or something like I couldn't think of a really good way to make it interesting at all. But the real ending is something that completely took me off guard. I was not expecting it in the slightest, but it felt very right for this game. And it made everything come together in a way that touched me emotionally and that I was not expecting at all. And I know that that's really a leading statement for sure, but I do not want to spoil it here. This game, what essentially the ending encapsulates, is this game is truly, truly, and I mean that truly, a love letter to this developer's childhood, and it really shows. Um, Very, very interesting ending, and one that was pretty eye opening to me, but also unique. And it's not like, oh yeah, he had a troubled childhood or something, and therefore, like this is the way it is. It's like, no, it's just a really hard left turn, but at the same time, it's not. I don't know. It's hard to say without really giving it away, and I don't want to. Um, but that is definitely where this game's crowning moment is that ending. That, and obviously the big play on this person's nostalgia. But that's basically the long and short of the game, really. So now that we've gone all through all that, where does this divisive response come from? Because I think, obviously, I feel like I've been pretty glowing, right? I don't think I've said anything really bad about this game the entire time. It gets very short. It's only a 2 or 3 hour game, so you really don't have too long to hate it. Like if you're gonna hate it, you're really gonna figure it out pretty quick, and if you're gonna love it, you're gonna figure it out pretty quick too. So like, where does this gap come from? And I think I have the answer. And the answer is the critics who reviewed this game are typically going to be around the same age as the developer or the child in the story. Um, I can imagine that this game would be super boring, like absolutely a snooze fest, if you cannot relate to it at all. And guess who can't relate to it at all? Anybody who wasn't born in the 90s. And admittedly, I can't relate to an Ecuadorian child who loves soccer, but I do get a 90s vibe from this, absolutely. And like the technology and the themes of society in general that are worldwide, omnipresent of that time is just, it's universal. And it'd be like me playing a game about a normal day of a kid in like the 70s. And it's like I guess I could respect it. I could if it was a really good piece of art, if it was a really good story and did something really cool, I could probably like watch a movie or play a game of some dude in the 70s and be like, yeah, I mean, I can objectively appreciate that what you did is really good, but like it wouldn't move me in any relatable way. Like I don't relate. There's no nostalgia to being in the 70s for me. I wasn't alive. I didn't exist. So nostalgia here is clearly a very powerful thing. And while the game obviously isn't like widespread nostalgia, like it's only for people in that particular era, I do still think that there is a crossover to be appealing, and I think it's done well enough to do that. Like it's kind of, it is the example of if somebody made a really good game in the set in the 70s, I would be able to respect it. I think even if you weren't born in the 90s and you don't have a nostalgic connection here, you can still respect this game. I think it's going to be much harder. It's going to be much more boring. But like I think everything that I've ever seen set in a different time period that I wasn't around for, that's a slice of life story. It's always been really difficult for me to be like, yeah, I get it. Like I really like it. And it's normally everybody from that time period is like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. And I'm always like, it really just does not grab me in any significant way, right? So I think that this game still does something interesting enough that you can get something out of it. You probably just won't love it. You probably won't relate to it like I did, and therefore it won't be as good. So the takeaway is if you are in your early 30s, you should give the game a shot. If you really love soccer, you probably should give this game a shot. But I can't really speak to it, the soccer part. But otherwise, I think it's going to be super boring. I think if you have a nostalgic connection to this or soccer, you're going to think this game is really amazing and really cool. Otherwise, it's just going to be super boring. So, do I agree with an 89? That's a really high score on Metacritic. Probably not. I think that's a little high. I think I'd give it maybe an 8.5. Still think that it's all cool, but like it's basically a movie, pretty much. 8.5 is probably where I'd go with it. And it's worth admission for the 2 to 3 hours that it takes to get through for your time. So overall, I think that this game is really remarkable, but it's remarkable for me. I think objectively, people's mileage is going to vary, and I think the user reviews for this game are going to certainly show that and have shown that. So that's why I think there's such a gap. I think the critics nowadays are just in that time frame. They are the 30 somethings now that are in the games journalism and making those reviews and all that good stuff. So that's why it is the way it is. But that is Despelote. Good impression segment, I think, personally. So that is going to wrap it up for our ho-ho holiday special. Kind of special, maybe. Probably by the time you're hearing this, unless you're one of the lucky few, you're going to have 2-3 days. You'll have 3 full days to listen to this episode to get the Christmas spirit, the Christmas joy. Let it be topical for you. So hopefully you're commuting to the in-laws or whatnot tomorrow by the time this episode goes up. But happy holidays. Happy holidays. Truly. I hope you get some good games under the tree. Maybe a good gift card to GameStop. People still go there. Sometimes you can do it. It's possible. Or I think my cousin now asks for Steam gift cards. That's what his main Christmas ask is. He's kind of shifted a lot to PC. So it's soon. Maybe you'll get a Steam gift card. I'm looking forward to playing some games over the break. We'll see how much time I'll have. I definitely will be busy over the next couple of weeks, but maybe I'll have some time to actually play a game for the first time in like 2 months or something. But regardless, I'm always looking for news and industry topics to discuss. I really enjoy doing it, and I really enjoy that you take the time to listen to this. I hope that I haven't been too rambly. Like I said, I've been really zapped for energy, really short on time, and I hope that I haven't made it your experience listening to this podcast a little less coherent and probably a little bit more frustrating, but I do the best I can. I'm a one-man shop, and I'm trying to get the content out for you the best I can, the fastest I can, the most efficiently I can. So, with that, I wish you and yours a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I will see you next year on the Plug in Play podcast. Thank you, friend. Bye bye.